Hi everyone, welcome to Dropkick DiSKussions. Today I'm joined by, it's quite hard to actually put any kind of introduction because he's been everywhere, he's wrestled absolutely everywhere, so I'm just going to say ECW and WWE legend, Stevie Richards. How's it going, Stevie?
Everything is great, thank you. I appreciate the fact you don't want to put any labels on me, so it's a pleasure to be here. I keep trying to kind of like break the labels of a wrestler or a nerd or a fitness guy or all three at the same time, and I'm sure we'll cover all that confusing stuff today.
Yeah, well, people might actually notice you've got a lot more of a technical setup than a lot of the people I've interviewed, but we'll get into that in a little bit. The reason I didn't want to put a label on it, one of my favourite things, and we'll get into a few other slightly more obscure things about it, but one of my favourite things about Stevie Richards in wrestling was your runs with the Hardcore Championship. The reason I don't want to say anything other than that is because it's really hard to remember or put a number on how many reigns you had. A lot of people say 20, 21, 22. I don't know if you can remember how many you had, but if not, I'll just kind of ask a question about the Hardcore Championship, and that would be, do you have any favourite memories of with it? Any favourite, it might all be a blur to you now, but do you have any favourite memories of any reigns or wins you had of the Hardcore Championship?
Well, I'll tell you a funny story that's connected to that, because the reason why there's so much confusion over the number of titles or number of times we've held the title, talking about just really anybody, was because I've technically held it 22 times. Raven had held it 21 times. Raven went to the website, magazine, whatever media people there were, and had that flipped. He would relentlessly bother them until they switched it, until finally, if you've known Raven, at the end, just go, as good of a guy as he is, just give him what he wants. Tell him to shut up. So that has been a point of contention, friendly, between my Raven and myself, that it really is. I have had it 22 times. He has had it 21. In this day and age of the 24/7 title, it doesn't even matter because it's completely morphed into something else. But the best memory of the entire thing was what it was supposed to be designed for and what they're trying to design it to do, but I don't think they're doing as well as they did when we did it back then. And that's really use and incorporate everybody they haven't been using to their fullest potential in the most entertaining way. Now it seems like it's a Keystone Cops thing and tons and tons of schoolboys. Nothing interesting. So, you know.
That was going to be my next question, was actually about WWE bringing in the 24/7 Championship. It does really feel like they're trying to kind of reincarnate the Hardcore title in some way. Do you think it's got potential to be anywhere near it, or do you think that it's just trying to kind of flog a dead horse that was amazing back in the day but might not quite garner the same attention?
Well, I think taking out the headshots, which we took plenty of back then, is a big deal. Taking out a lot of the danger, because we weren't thinking much about that. Taking bumps on a floor, on the back concrete in the locker room or in the loading dock area. But there could be a happy medium. There can't just be everybody schoolboying everybody, because it's so boring and safe. And who's gonna not kick out on the lightest? I'm not blaming him, because I wouldn't want somebody to bang my head against the concrete on a schoolboy backstage, but there should be creative ways of somebody falling asleep at the airport and getting pinned, somebody doing this, just interesting things. The best thing they've done so far was the Fox, I think it was the Founders Day thing, where one of the hosts, see, that's interesting. See, getting mainstream people involved to mingle with the wrestlers. If they do more of that might help it out.
Yeah, man, and that's I think that kind of thing, it's always great when WWE always tries to transcend wrestling and bring in different kinds of media, which kind of brings me on. I had a little side note that I wanted to ask. You were around WWE back when the XFL was in its first incarnation. How do you feel about them bringing that back? Do you think that's something that could go far now, or do you think it's quite a difficult thing to bring back, considering how it went the first time round?
I'll tell you another little fun fact is Gene Snitsky and myself, you know Gene Snitsky,
Yeah.
the one Kick the Baby. He and myself were considering trying out for XFL teams. He was going to try. He was a former, I think he was a lineman. He had to be a lineman or a linebacker. He was definitely somebody who was one of the big trench guys.
Yeah.
I was going to try out for field goal kicker because back in high school I was a field goal kicker. So I thought, it might be a cool thing to try out for. There was no team locally here for me to try out for, so I didn't end up doing it. And plus, I wasn't so sure if I would. I mean, as a walk-on, it's hard to say. XFL, though, in my opinion, I think they were a year too late because last year the NFL was wavering in their popularity.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of things the XFL didn't really capitalize on to really kind of like call out the NFL for the Kaepernick stuff, for the pass interference play. They didn't really try to I guess get on the NFL radar. As a matter of fact, I think they're trying to be a feeder league for the NFL, which has not been successful. The AAF, I believe it was called, the American Alliance of Football, tried to do that. They're done. The XFL will survive, I believe, maybe one season. And that's about it, man, because the NFL just has it locked down. It's kind of like everybody kind of compared to WWE. WWE, for whatever criticism you have of their product, they are the ones that you always equate with professional wrestling. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely, man, definitely. And you're someone who's got a lot of experience in professional wrestling at different companies, so you're definitely qualified to say that, which brings me on to my next question.
Well, let me say one more thing, Gary, real quick.
Yeah.
I don't want them to fail. Yeah. I don't want football. I want just like wrestlers. I want wrestlers to go to AEW, Impact, New Japan, whatever indie there is out there. I want everybody to be able to make a living and be able to follow their dreams. If you cannot make it in the NFL, but you still want to be a professional football player, I hope the XFL sticks around and it's a viable way to support your family and live out your dream. So I don't ever take any pleasure in anything failing.
That perfectly feeds into the next question I was going to ask, so even better.
I'm a good segue guy, ain't I?
Yeah, definitely. So it's about competition. Everyone says that competition is needed in this day and age. You were there around the original days. You're one of the very few people who have wrestled in WWE, ECW, WCW. Where do you feel you did your best work?
Well, I mean, ECW, week in and week out, I was used to the full extent of my potential at the time. For being young and not knowing, ECW took advantage and accentuated my strengths, hid my many weaknesses. But I think the best of it, you'll probably be surprised at this. People think it's right to censor, people think it's the BWO, but I really think it's Stevie Night Heat, because it was really where I was truly allowed to do what I could do without being hindered, handcuffed. I wasn't noticed either because they weren't paying attention, but I literally, Coach, Al Snow, myself, and then the people that were involved, we were all booking the show without that. They didn't care. So to me, that was the most freeing 6 or 7 months until they finally found out. And the stories you hear about Stephanie walking in, seeing me with a apron on, kiss the GM, chocolate pie on Victoria's face, Johnny Ace denying he knew anything about it. Absolutely true.
Well, that was actually one of my questions I was going to ask you later. I mentioned earlier about the hardcore title runs, but my favourite Stevie Richards thing was Stevie Night Heat. It made a show that, people always say A show, B show, whatever, but Sunday Night Heat wasn't really kind of, it's never been as lowly watched as like main event superstars and stuff, but it was just its own thing, which made it must-see television, particularly for somebody like me who was a big ECW fan. There was obviously a lot of ECW guys on it, but how difficult is it to be like someone who is on like a losing streak, or does it make life easier because there's no pressure? Because it's something WWE have tried to do recently again with Kurt Hawkins, and I know he's notoriously said that he was all for being on a losing streak because it just gave him so much freedom with what he wanted to do. Is that something that you found as well, or was it kind of annoying at the same time?
Well, it wasn't so much losing a lot of matches, because the responsibility for me was when new talent came in to help them get comfortable and get them over. So it was a great responsibility when I was in that spot, and people didn't see it that way. But I had already been on the road with a Batista for a few weeks, or a Randy Orton, or other people on house shows to get them ready. What it always came down to me was, getting booked, making money, hopefully having some merchandise or video game money, and trying to save as much as I can, because when you're hired in wrestling, you're one day closer to getting fired each day you're there.
Yeah.
It's the nature of the business. The problem with that was, it's not like the NFL or the XFL or a competitive sport. My true ability can always be masked or hidden. When they say talent always overcomes, I'm not always in agreement of that, because look at how many times I got myself over and then they stopped me or put me back on heat or sat me at home. They have a remedy to try to put themselves back in control. Now, I'm not saying it's hopeless, because I still showed up in the best shape I could. I still had the best matches I could for whatever time they would give me. But yeah, it's like I say today, Kurt Hawkins, great example, great guy, Zack Ryder, other guys. It's an unfortunate thing that your value and your sacrifices as a human being are always tempered as less important if you are lower on an imaginary subjective card. I mean, it's really what it is. Those guys and girls, no matter who they are, what they do, whether they work or not, they take the same flights. They get in the same rental cars. They have the same lack of sleep. They have to find the gym. They have to eat right. They have to look good. And then to come in and, after all that sacrifice, to sit down and watch everybody get to play or perform. And imagine, you hear about football players that want to go to teams where they can start when they're making more money with the team or on second string. That's how you understand it. You don't want to sit there and waste away. And that's kind of what I felt at times. And it was funny, because when I wasn't frustrated, they thought he doesn't care enough to want to get pushed. And then when I complained, I had a bad attitude, and it was a very, very thin line that was, quite frankly, I'm so glad I'm kind of like out of it and doing my own thing now, because that's very mentally, emotionally taxing on you after 9.5 years in WWE. So,
yeah.
But it's cool. Hey, I chose to be there. I could have left. I could have asked for my release at any time, and I didn't. I stuck it out. So it's on me as much as it would be on them.
Yeah, it sounds like a very thin tightrope to have to walk. But I felt like that with a lot of Blue World Order and stuff back when you were a big thing in that. And it was entertaining television, but I can imagine it would be quite challenging. But one of my favourite things, again, was Right to Censor that you mentioned earlier. And in the world we're in now, where there's a lot of talk about controversy, political correctness and stuff, do you feel like Right to Censor were maybe ahead of their time? And do you think that's a faction that would be a lot more successful now?
You can always bring something like that back. You could rename it as something like, I don't know. I don't know what the labels are, and the people that try to control and censor people or do whatever. The right would say the left is doing it. The left would say the right is doing it. Whatever your local government is, whatever two sides of what I call the same party anyway.
Yeah.
It's all the same people. Today, it's weird. With the nostalgia of WWE, though, if the right to censor, or if I came out, say, at Royal Rumble or something, and people heard the sirens, the weird part about the way the crowd has switched is that it would probably get initially cheered.
Yeah.
Because it's just something they remember. It's something they remember, and it's something that it's so backwards to cheer the censor guy that the fans would do it. It's weird. I think that I could still get heat. My friends have joked with me, friends within the business that I do podcasts with. If you remember Big Sal from ECW, Great Guy Poppin' On's another one, and also Ben Hameen. We all do a podcast together. But they always joke, if you just came out on the Raw reunion and said, "We won," threw the mic down, walked away, that would be it.
Oh man, that would be absolutely incredible. that would be even better than Roman Reigns saying it's my yard now. That would have been absolutely incredible.
But then again, they wouldn't want that. It was it's never meant to be. You know what I mean? But
yeah.
Hey, if the right, like I said, I don't know. It's weird. Here's the thing. People say, well, if the right opportunity came along or the right payday or whatever, but I'm really past that. And there's so many other things going on that we're going to talk about, Gary, that supersede money right now, that if I went back to WWE or signed with any other company to give them if they were paying me a full-time salary or full-time guarantee, they deserve my full all-in attention, which mean I have to sacrifice my fitness business, the podcast, and all my other ventures that I've actually invested my time in. So it's sorry fans, it's over. That's probably not the last thing they want. We're not over with the interview, but that's kind of like
definitely, man. That was I've only really got one more kind of wrestling question, then we're definitely going to get into all that amazing stuff you're doing just now.
No problem.
But you've kind of maybe shut the door on part of it, but I'll reword it anyway. So I believe the last time we saw you in a wrestling ring was 2016, Ring of Honor, maybe.
Yes.
The last one. Yeah. During that, you wrestled a lot of big names. There was Silas Young, Roderick Strong, and the current NXT champion, Adam Cole. Well, I was going to ask, is it something that you ever would go back to? But also, how amazing was it just being able to wrestle so many of the amazing young talents that are around today, having been around and being able to wrestle a load of guys for 20 years ago as well?
Well, that's the guys like that and the guys I'm wrestling today in places like Wildcat Sports and other places is literally the only reason I stay in the business at all. Yeah. Because I do have a responsibility to pass along positive information and reinforcement and knowledge to them. And plus to myself, I mean, I still got a little bit of that masculinity in me where I have to, hey, can I still hang with this kid who's 20 years younger than me? I still got a little bit of that left in me. My wife always tells me I need to when's it going to be over? When are you going to get that out of your system? And I'm like, well, I'm almost 50, maybe in another 10 years, who knows? But but before that was the first match was the Proving Grounds match against Jay Lethal, which we put in 20 minutes in October of the year before. That the only thing I didn't like about the match with Jay, the match with Adam, the match with Silas, the match with Roddy, which was the TV match for the TV title, was that I didn't have a full-time wrestling schedule. So I didn't get to really enjoy the matches because I was too busy struggling in the first leg of that match to catch my second wind, because there's no other conditioning that's close to actually wrestling. But here's a little thing, Gary, too, is like I talked about this in one of my videos with the Goldberg Taker match, which it's the popular thing to bury Goldberg and Taker. You're too old, you don't have it, blah, blah, blah. That match was designed to fail because it went way too long. Both guys were in incredible physical condition. Were they in wrestling shape, though? No, it's not possible because it's a double-edged sword. Goldberg and Taker could train in a wrestling school, take bumps, run spots, do all this stuff, but they're going to be feeling like shit by the time they get to the match because just like UFC, most guys go into their fights not 100% because of all the training injuries. Pro wrestling's the same way. So I would rather get in the ring, blow up a little bit, and kind of be a little sore afterwards rather than I'm training 2 weeks straight for a match and I'm already just dog tired by the time I get in the ring. It's something you have to temper. So just let people know when you want to get on guys for being in their 50s and then they get put out there for a 15-minute match and they've never worked together. Oh, that's tough. And that's what kind of like on a smaller scale, that's what I felt wrestling those guys in Ring of Honor. But it was also a cool thing to kind of do and pass along that to them.
Yeah, definitely, man. And you've kind of half closed the door on wrestling or having one big last run before that. But I had a little question about, we spoke about we kind of touched on your technology, your love of technology. You've got several podcasts. My favourite one is the Conspiracy Horsemen, but you've got a load where you talk about wrestling and everything else. Do you feel like being so busy and having so many of these other ventures, obviously your fitness as well, all these ventures, do you feel like that's the kind of thing, has it always been there, you've always wanted to do it, but wrestling was the priority, or is this filling a void that's left from wrestling?
That's pretty tough. It's probably a little bit of both. I mean, I've always had these interests. I always kept up with them because, and I say this to anybody out there who has a job, whether it be in wrestling or a job that you're not satisfied with, or even a job you like, but you're not testing yourself and fulfilling yourself. Do these things, especially in this day and age of YouTube, where you're like, I don't know how to do this. Look it up on a YouTube video. Hopefully you come across my stuff, but but no, I always had a passion for, I mean, when I was in high school, I was always a nerdy kid. I liked tech. I liked video games. I liked fitness, but I didn't have the knowledge and I didn't have anybody to show me anything up until a certain age when I would pay my dues in a local gym. I'd be cleaning up the weights just to kind of be around to kind of get some knowledge. So I kind of had to wait to kind of pay your dues before I was in wrestling, even though I didn't know what pay your dues were. Yeah. Wrestling wasn't like I had a void in wrestling, but I did because I wasn't being creatively fulfilled. So that's why I started the tech channel, the tech podcast, tried to do it under my real name in 2007. I mean, it's funny how you're talking about ahead of the curve type stuff. I was podcasting and had a YouTube channel before any of these guys. That doesn't make me like, oh, look at me, I'm so cool, because they've managed to market and become more notable than me. So God bless them for that. But when YouTube, believe it or not, wasn't that popular, or podcasting wasn't that known, it was like maybe Adam Curry and a few other people. Yeah. That's about it. So, I've always had that love for that. And then the fitness stuff went from a necessity because I knew I had to work out.
Yeah.
So every time I got hurt, Gary, it became more, my mindset was, wow, I have to work out for physical therapy. Then it became, with all these injuries, I can still be healthy and fit. Now I get to work out every day. I get to be in shape. I get to get out of bed because every day I wrestle, my God, I'm testing fate, ain't I? I'm testing fate by, it just takes one bad bump, and we've seen it. It takes one little move to be botched, and someone's in a wheelchair or something like that, knock on wood, is a real possibility. So I'm always mindful of that. And it's kind of like on a bigger scale, I guess, a big picture thing. Yeah. I always try to learn something new every day. I always try to get better. I always try to kind of get a positive word out or do whatever I can, because we just don't know, man. We just don't. We can get right off this call, and God forbid it's over for one or both of us.
Yeah, definitely, man.
Isn't that deep as hell?
Yeah, definitely. Gotta go cry in a corner after this one. But no, I think I always say wrestling, there is a natural progression. Maybe not with the technology side of it. I think that's a very unique thing that you've managed to do, and that is a hobby that's been unique to yourself, that you've turned into something that teaches everyone. But specifically the fitness program, a lot of wrestlers do a fitness program. For me, I think it's amazing because it's great for former wrestlers, it's great for up and coming wrestlers, it's great for fans of the wrestlers. For you, is that something that, you said there, it helped kind of get over the injuries, but do you feel like that's something that it was just a natural progression and you can just give so much experience of being injured, getting over those injuries and just staying in shape? Is that something that you feel like it's maybe not a burden as such on you, but did you feel you had to give that information out there and try and make everyone a bit healthier?
Well, yeah, I mean, it came out of necessity because, and that's a great question, because the fitness programs came out of the necessity of obviously being on the road, not having access to a gym all the time, being in the hotel room, flights were delayed. On a more profound scale, injuries, where I couldn't have a barbell or a dumbbell and the momentum on my joint injuries, or I had to modify, I had to lessen weight, but I still needed some type of dynamic resistance with what I was doing. I mean, the bands have been a big part of my workout, even if they're just an accessory. Say go barbell, I would do sometimes barbell, dumbbell, machine, and then finish off with like 100 reps of like curls with the bands or something. I would just do burnouts. They would always be a part of it. But as I get older, body weight and bands and things that are more rehab specific have become a big part of it. That's 12 and the 16-week resistance band training program, the chair workout video, then the test yourself, the full body workout video. And we have stuff coming later this year. Every year, we really try to provide a big update to help people for a better value too. But the thing about fitness that I don't like and that I had to get out of my head, well, I couldn't do it because of all the injuries, so I'll explain why. Most people that you see do the fitness videos, most people that you see that do, hey, here's my fitness program, they're showing off almost impossible things, right?
Yeah.
You look at them, I mean, it's inspiring. It can be inspiring, but it's also intimidating.
Yeah.
With mine, I even hate flexing my muscles and showing a body. I don't like even not wearing sleeves outside of the occasional podcast interview. Yeah. But my whole thing is that I learned is I don't care about selling to the guy that looks like John Cena who can deadlift 600 pounds. Like you just said, I want the wrestling fan who's never worked out before. I want the person that's afraid to go to the gym and needs to kind of just be by themselves and try to have somebody help them along. I want the mom that just had a baby and can't leave the gym and pay the daycare fee. I want a kid like you maybe that works in front of the computer all day and it's 12, 16-hour days and you work weird hours. So you're like, man, at 2 a.m. I can't go to the gym and there's videos rendering. So let me get a 15-minute workout in. These are the people. And also the people, like I said before, $15 for the 12 week, $25 for the 16 week. And then the videos are around $12.99. Plus you get direct email support from me. So you're essentially getting online personal training along with these. You're getting full support. So it literally, like, I get so much heat from my accountant. Just he was like, you made these prohibitively like affordable, not prohibitively expensive. You made them so, and I said, well, I'm hoping to make it up in volume. And it's been like 2 years. He goes, we're not getting the volume. And I was like, yeah, but there's people out there. Well, it'll come along. Don't worry. So, you know, that's the kind of stuff I want people to say that it's hard to say. You got to kind of say, like, look at this person that I helped. And I hate that part because it feels self-serving because that person did all the work and all I said was, here's the tools, here's a few videos. If you don't follow it, you're still going to be out. But just getting back to that, and one last point is I really don't like the fitness industry as a whole for a lot of the reasons I don't like the wrestling industry and even the tech industry. It has a self-serving, we're going to talk above your head, we're going to talk down you. There's a condescending tone in a lot of the stuff. And also, it's more about the person creating the content than the people that are consuming it.
Yeah.
I create stuff I like to do, but I'm talking about when you're selling a product or a service, we have to take the gravity in the fitness industry that these people have literally put their lives in our hands. And also, when someone buys my program, they might have tried 6 other programs and are one step away from just giving up on life.
Yeah.
That's the gravity I take with that. Maybe I'm overreacting, but I'd rather do that than think, they emailed me, I'll get back to them in a couple of days. And then I find out, holy God, that person was like really reaching out for help.
Yeah.
So I take that very, very seriously.
Definitely for me, I think that's truly inspirational as well. I've got one final question. So we're going to go from inspiring to conspiring. I know that you're on the Conspiracy Horsemen podcast.
It sounded like you said one fatal question. You mean final. Your accent came through.
Question, sorry. Yeah,
maybe if we talked about the wrong conspiracy, it could be fatal.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I normally like to end on a very controversial question. And I normally just make people choose between something daft like pineapple on pizza or not, or who would you rather be stuck in a lift with. But considering the Conspiracy Horsemen, I feel like one question that I could ask that might end up being controversial, might not be controversial. What's your favourite conspiracy theory? What's the best conspiracy theory you've ever heard?
What's your definition of best? Like, what do you mean?
maybe give us the most fun one then. What's one that you think, man, that's maybe the funniest one I've ever heard? How could that possibly be? Or have you got any favorites?
Well, you know what's funny is like when you go into this and you examine it every week and you talk, and you have two guys popping on myself are Christian, Sal and Ben are atheists. And you got to think in this day and age, well, how can you guys do like 2 years of podcasting? Because we respect each other's opinions. We can be wrong. We can say the other person's right. We can agree to disagree. We never say that's too crazy, because at one time, like, we were people that were saying, well, that's crazy. Of course it was Lee Harvey Oswald to kill JFK.
Yeah.
And then, wait a minute, that's crazy. The Gulf of Tonkin really happened. Wait, that's crazy. 9/11 was exactly what they told us it was. Do you see how now you get to the point where you're like, there's nothing out there that you say is ridiculous. Now, what I will say is, like, what's that?
Nothing's impossible.
Nothing's impossible.
Anything can be possible.
I will say, like there's some people when they go into deep, like, I'm not quite into, like, I have friends that go into these deep dives into like numerology, and it sounds like they're putting the red string everywhere.
Yeah.
That's stuff I haven't gotten my head around, because we're number one about simplifying everything, and we're number two, or should I say 1A, 1B, not telling you what to think, just asking the questions.
Yeah.
Like, we don't say this is exactly what it was. We say, how can it be this? Like, this doesn't make sense. And being professional wrestlers, having promoters lie to us, having people lie to us about how much money we made, about this, about that, being deceived all the time, we have a natural inclination to look out for what we call the work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's really all it is. Like, here's what I put to a lot of people. And this puts it in perspective. Now, politicians they exist everywhere, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So here's what I say. Do you trust the government? Of course not. Who's going to say they trust the government? Like, do you trust the government with your tax dollars? Oh, God, no. Do you think politicians lie all the time? Do you think they're doing stuff that are keeping secret from us? Absolutely. Well, you're a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. No, I would. That's the basis for everything, is we do not believe anything we're told. Hey, do you believe everything you see on TV? Oh, the news lies. I mean, I watch Fox News. They have one spin. I watch CNN. They have the exact opposite of everything else. Okay, well, the mainstream media all lies to you. No, they don't. It's a strange disconnect of, they call it cognitive dissonance, which is also like a trigger word, kind of like conspiracy theorist. But unfortunately, the guys like us, Gary, who just sit there and have a conversation, and we talk like we're in the locker room. So it is kind of fun, and it's goofing off in a way, and we're ribbing each other or doing whatever. But all people here are Alex Jones, and probably on your side you're on the other side of the pond, I assume, right?
Yeah.
Hey, David Icke.
Yeah.
But David Icke is a little bit more reserved than all you think of as Alex Jones, crazy, screaming, shirtless, running around. I more prefer, like, I would tell people, besides listening to the stuff I've been putting out, because I put out the Stevie Richards broadcast with my own interviews of people, I would listen to the old Rogan shows. The older Rogan shows are interesting. And I would probably say, here's what I would say. My most fun conspiracy to go into a rabbit hole about is the moon landing. Yeah. The moon landing, and let me make it a little bit more fun for anybody who just rolls their eyes. The moon landing / secret space program. Like, either you debunk the moon landing, or you call it a moon landing hoax or whatever, or you sit there and you're like, man, I watched Gaia, you watched Corey Good and these other guys, and they talk about jumping to Mars and remote viewing. Are you familiar with any of this stuff?
Yeah.
That's the cool, like, man, there's like aliens and like the Bob Lazar Area 51 stuff and things like that. And actually, I recommend everybody out there, especially you, there's a guy, Deep Thoughts Radio on YouTube. I don't know the guy, but he does an interesting long form black and white kind of like video / podcast on YouTube, and he's really, really cool to listen to. Very coast to coast AM style, which is what I'm trying to bring. I'm actually looking for a radio station to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Dude, it's interesting no matter what. Like when people say, how can you talk to this person? How can you do this? What do you just listen to somebody? It doesn't mean at the end of the hour they're going to have you brainwashed into thinking that like the earth is flat or any of this stuff. They're going to just listen to somebody and just say, well, that's cool, but I don't believe in that. And if they're a real rational person who likes to talk to somebody with different opinions, like, that's cool. Well, if you ever change your mind, we'd like to talk again, we can come back and talk. That's the problem. People, where are you at right now?
I'm in Glasgow in Scotland.
I love Glasgow. I love it over there. I went over there with WWE. Very, very cool. That was one of my favorite places to go to, even though I was there for like maybe only a day, but it was real nice. Great Chinese food. One of my first times one of the only times I had beer on the road. I had a beer, Chinese restaurant. The guy recommended it to me. So really good stuff. But like I said, one last thing about that, like, don't so much like think, oh, that's conspiracy or this and that and the other thing. Just listen to somebody, especially with the wrestling, the AEW versus WWE, and then we can finish on a wrestling note on that. Who cares? Yeah. If it's good, it's good. If it's bad, it's bad. And if it's bad, don't watch it.
Yeah, definitely.
If it's bad, subscribe to the WWE network. I'm not saying it's because I get a royalty. God knows I need one. I deserve one because I'm all over it. But that hopefully butt back on those guys will win the lawsuit. But if you want to relive that era of wrestling that you enjoyed, $10 a month. I mean,
nothing.
You don't. I only go to things that I enjoy. Like I watched your stuff with the kid who he did all the interviews like Dolph Ziggler and all those guys did. He seemed like a really cool kid.
Yeah.
That was the one you sent me, right?
Yes, Chris Van Vliet.
What's his name?
I think was the guy that I sent you a video that I done with Chris Van Vliet.
Yeah. So I was going to say that, I saw that and I was like, oh, these guys, I like to be on a show with these guys. Boom. There's some that I've seen and be like, they're going to kind of just grill me about questions that are like, like the Howard Stern style questions. I'm like, you're talking to the wrong dude, man. I went to bed at like 10 o'clock at night after I played video games. But I've stretched this interview long enough. Sorry. Yeah, see, when you start talking about conspiracy theories and stuff, I'll just go.
I can end on the one point that you said about conspiracy theories. That's like my favourite quote that I've ever heard. And it's just a few simple words. So the thing that I got told is, ignorance is slavery, knowledge is freedom. And that's when you're going into conspiracy theories, I think that's the one thing to keep in mind, just at all times. But yeah, thank you so much. And I encourage everyone to check out Stevie Richards on YouTube for a start. And then from there, I'm sure you'll just get lost in worlds of fitness, technology, conspiracy theories, and of course wrestling. But yeah, thank you so much for chatting to me, man. It's been an absolute pleasure.
No problem. By the way, go to StevieRichardsFitness.com and buy one of the programs before you see the videos, because you might not, if you see the wrong video, if it's a conspiracy theory one, you'll be like, I'm not buying anything from this guy.
Definitely, man.
Matter of fact, as a parody, I thought about coming out with flat earth, flat abs, a core workout. Just why not, man?
That, man? Definitely get a whole new market as well, man. Excellent. Thank you so much, man. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, guys. Everybody have a great day.
Cheers, man. Have a great day, man. Thank you.